Hi, folks. Welcome back to Ken Michaels Radio. And a big thank you to all of you who just recently subscribed. I so appreciate that. And I notice how all of my videos are getting more and more views. And I appreciate that as well. It shows that my audience is growing, and that's a great feeling. Here on this site, I interview people who are in some way connected with the Beatles or host Beatles radio programs, podcasts, authors, you name it. And this time out, we have one of the youngest guests that we will have on this show. He is one of the youngest podcasters out there on the Beatles, and he has a podcast called Fans on the Run. And here on this channel, I do like to interview people who are older than me, younger than me, so that we can get different perspectives and different opinions on the Beatles and their solo music. And everybody's opinions are valid here on this show. Ethan Alexanian is my special guest. We have him on the show because of his podcast, Fans on the Run. And also because for the young Beatle fan, he is your symbol. He is pretty much like the grandson of Susan Canby for Beatle fans. He's not expecting me to say that in the introduction, but there you go. Wanted to see if I could catch him off guard. Ethan, welcome to Ken Michaels Radio.
You know what? I wasn't, it didn't hit me by surprise that you pulled out the symbol card. Because there were a couple times where I was watching Talk More Talk and you pulled that out. And that just, I rode that high for a few days.
Uh-huh.
Just sending the clip to my friends like, look, guys, I'm a symbol.
For the youth, for
For
the
the
young
youth.
Beatle fan. That's you. And,
They deserve a better symbol.
we've had Sam Wiles here on this channel. No doubt we'll get Hudson Ranney, who's 13 years old, and you're 18 years old, hosting a podcast. And before we start with our show, and you wanted to participate in the Number Nine Dream concept, tell the folks about your podcast and some of the very special guests that you've interviewed.
Okay, so as Ken said, I host a show called Fans on the Run. The tagline is the show made by, for, and about Beatle fans. So kind of does what it says on the tin right there.
Hmm.
I bring people on, like authors, other podcast hosts, even just, normal fans, and I just, walk through their long and winding road of Beatle fandom, so to speak.
Hmm.
I've had people like Ken Womack, Ivor Davis, Wally Podrazic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's getting harder and harder to name people off the top of my head now that I'm entering that 65 episode range.
Wow, that's great. Do you do a show a week or how
I
often?
used to. I think I'm gonna drop down to, well, I have dropped down to one every 2 weeks, just to
Okay.
make things a little bit more manageable.
Well, you got to slow down in your old age.
Yeah, well, absence makes the heart grow fonder.
So that means you've been doing this for a year to a year and a half now.
Just a little over a year.
Hmm. Okay, well, great. I duly recommend to all people watching to check out his podcast show. And Ethan wanted to do a Number Nine Dream show on Paul McCartney, and more specifically on Paul's solo music. So the Number Nine Dream show works like this: we pick a Beatle, that Beatle gets three different categories, and our guest has to name his top three songs or albums in each category. And the three categories this time will be Paul's solo albums. And in this case, it has to be studio albums. So we're eliminating live. We're also eliminating greatest hits or compilations and classical music. Sorry, Ethan.
Yeah. Well, there
Uh,
goes my top three.
well, I don't think anybody would put a greatest hits, you know, in their
Unless you're
top
an
list.
absolute, sadist, and your top three is Wingspan, Wings Greatest, and Pure McCartney.
Hmm. I'd hate to think there's someone out there that would place those three in their top three, but in their own way, they have their value. But yeah, so one of the categories is top three McCartney albums. There's also top three solo B-sides or bonus tracks from Paul's solo career, and also top three solo lyrics from McCartney songs. And this could work just like I did with Al Sussman, with John Lennon. It could be one line from a song or the entire set of lyrics for a song. So we're going to get your perspective on Paul's solo career through these three categories. And we're going to start with your top three McCartney albums. By the way, this does include Wings. I mean, yeah, Wings and the Fireman. Okay. Because some people do separate Wings from his solo albums. So, and
I
that's
find it hard to separate though, because you kind of Ram has Denny Sywell, so
true.
it's kind of Wings light, and then you have, it's kind of a slow transition into Wings.
It's a very debatable thing,
Yeah.
which we can save for another show. But, I happen to feel there was a lot more collaboration in Wings than, say, his band of the last 20 years. You know, I had songs from the other members of Wings where they took a lead vocal or wrote the song, even live. That happened. As I've said many times, Wings Over America, 5 Denny Lane songs. You wouldn't see that from his band of the last 20 years, or even the band with Hamish Stewart and Robbie McIntosh. There's a lot more collaborating that took place in the Wings days. So I do kind of look at it as a separate thing. But since most people do group it all together, we'll do the same here. So what would be your top three McCartney solo albums of all time?
See, since I largely stay within an audio only realm, I like having physical props to hold up, and since you're, a video channel now,
Uh-huh.
I've got some, props. For my number three is the first McCartney album that I heard when it was released brand new,
Hmm.
coincidentally, new.
Ah, okay.
Uh,
And why would that be in there?
Aside from, just the strong sentimental attachment to that album, I think it's the strongest thing he's done since Flaming Pie. And I know there's people who would say, Chaos and Creation, or, even Memory Almost Full. I feel like Paul is in top form here. And as a result, it's kind of made the last few albums, gives it a bit of a lessened impact because I keep comparing it to new.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. There are those people who, and it's interesting. I just saw an article where some writers from Ultimate Classic Rock listed their last great McCartney album, and many of them said Chaos and Creation. And I could certainly understand why. The songs in there, I think that's as perfect an album as possible. And a lot of fans there are those that don't want McCartney to try to have this modern sound and hook up with, the producers of the time. And certainly he did that with New and Egypt Station, for example. You can pinpoint certain McCartney albums where he does that, but kind of highlight, if you would, some of the songs that you think are really strong from New.
Well, I think the strongest example to me of, a great McCartney song is Queenie Eye. It's ever since revisiting this album, a couple years ago, because for a while it was kind of, in the back of my mind. But when I kind of dug it out of the mental storage,
Hmm.
I remembered how great Queenie Eye was, and it's in my top 5 McCartney songs.
Okay. It's also a nostalgic look at a game he used to play in his childhood.
Mhm.
A lot of people like when Paul reaches back and talks about things from his past. Early days is a real highlight for me. Other songs that you want to talk about from New?
Um, well, of course, there's the title track, New, which is kind of, I've always considered it son of Got to Get You Into My Life.
I was thinking that song when it first came out. It really had that poppy, maybe even a Penny Lane-ish feel to it.
Well, it's the most, in your face Beatle-y song on the record.
Hmm. Do you like when Paul has a retro sound?
I do like when Paul has a retro sound.
Hmm.
Although I don't like it when he relies too heavily on the retro sound. And I think New he has a really good balance because I really like the production on this record. I like the drum sounds. I like there's a couple tracks where he was using just a drum machine, which I thought was quite
Like
cool.
appreciate, something like that.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. So you like when Paul does, because to me, like The World Tonight is very Wings-ish.
Mhm.
Turned out, one of the bonus tracks on New has a quite a Wings sound to it, I think. So you enjoy when he takes that route.
I do enjoy it.
Hmm.
But I feel like Paul's kind of reached the spot, or he reached it with this record, where he found a nice middle ground, where he wasn't afraid to try new things. And clearly, as we saw with Egypt Station, well, in my opinion, he went a little too far in with the new producers,
Hmm.
and it ended up a little too, trying hard to sound modern.
Well, he had two producers on Egypt Station and he had four producers on New. And granted, Giles Martin did quite a lot of the production there too. And you have that whole history of the Martin family now with Paul. But yeah, Egypt Station also is a combination of traditional Paul and modern Paul. The Ryan Tedder stuff is definitely more modern Paul, For You and Nothing for Free. So, what would be another album that's a favorite of yours in your
Oh,
top three?
I don't think this is going to be a shocker for anybody. Ram. I
Okay.
know. Look at me going outside of the box here.
Uh-huh. And
It,
why so? There are a lot of people who think that this whole revival of Ram is they're not buying it. There are people who like the album but don't consider it one of his best. And yet, you do see now a 50th anniversary album coming out for Ram. I've always loved the album. I've never had a problem with it, but there's so many other albums from Paul that I love. So, what is it about Ram for you?
uh, I only kind of realized this when I went back one of the last few times I listened to it, and I kind of realized he's really laying the blueprints for like everything he's done since on this record.
Hmm.
Like you can hear the kind of rumblings of what Wings will become on some of these tracks. Like I I, I really hear it on Eat at Home, that you can really hear where he's going with Wings.
Okay. You think a lot of that just has to do with the fact that there's a strong Linda McCartney presence
Yeah.
on the album? I mean, certainly you hear a song like Long Haired Lady and it's got Linda all over it. So you can certainly hear Linda's vocal harmonies on a lot of Wings songs. She had such a presence in Wings. But there are those people who love Ram because of its pure organic sound and that it sounds really fresh like it could have been done today.
Yeah.
And even some people who say it's his most Beatley sounding album.
Well, I don't know if it's his most Beatley sounding album, but this kind of represents the philosophy for some of Paul's projects that I really appreciate the most, where he's not afraid to be Paul McCartney. And he got, trashed in the press when this record came out
Hmm.
for being Paul McCartney. And that's, I think, why a lot of people appreciate this album now. He's just doing what he likes.
Right. Yeah, that's what you think. Paul is overly self-conscious with all of his albums.
I don't know if I'd say overly self-conscious, but he does seem to be, quite a bit self-conscious
Hmm.
about what people want to hear,
What they expect from him.
what they expect, as opposed to what he wants to do.
Hmm. And that's also part of the reason why I think there's been more of an appreciation for McCartney, McCartney 2, and McCartney 3. It's just him playing around in the studio, doing what he feels like doing.
Yeah, it's, I mean, Monkberry Moon Delight. Monkberry Moon Delight.
Say no more.
I can say no more. It's Monkberry Moon Delight.
I
What
know.
more can you want?
It's one of his greatest vocals ever on record right there. I mean, for people that love his vocals on Oh Darling, it's continuous on Monkberry Moon Delight for 5.5 minutes.
Exactly.
It would have been heaven if it went on longer.
Could Do you reckon there's probably in some sort of vault somewhere with armed guards like a 26-minute version of Monkberry Moon Delight?
One could only hope, you know.
One could only dream.
Well, when we get another archival box set of Ram in the future,
Mhm.
because even when this whole thing is completed, they're going to redo it
Oh yeah.
again.
And this will have, it'll be an archive release of the archive release,
But more stuff.
but more stuff. You know, I still think they need to do suitcases for all of those albums.
I don't know if you need suitcases, but you need more music. That's for sure.
Well, a certain friend of ours needs suitcases.
That's true. We don't have
Mhm.
to talk about him
No.
though.
He likes it when I talk about him though.
He'll be on the show soon, and we'll talk about you.
Well,
And
I would like nothing more.
what would be the third album?
The third album, or I was going in kind of reverse order, like 3, 2, 1. And you'd mentioned McCartney 2 in that list.
Uh-huh.
This is my favorite Paul McCartney album.
I think I can understand why based on what we just said, but would you care to elaborate?
Okay. It's especially after, all of what happened with Wings, you know, people, calling them, granny music for all those years, dropping something weird, experimental like McCartney 2 on the laps of everyone expecting another Wings album.
Hmm.
Just beautiful. And you have all these instrumentals and experimental stuff, like sounds like he's taken inspiration from like Kraftwerk and Eno.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't even know how to describe something like bogey music. It's one of my favorite McCartney songs, but it's like 50s rock and roll from another dimension.
That's a good way to explain it.
Yeah,
I would say that. I always like to use the word quirky because
very quirky.
there's a lot of quirky songs in Paul's catalog. But yeah, but then Paul has said that when he was recording this, he didn't really know he was going to release it. So
I'm
you don't
glad he
really know.
did.
I think there are a lot of people now that appreciate this kind of stuff more, and I really do wish that he would do more of this. Same thing with the Fireman. The more experimental stuff, he has a tendency to either put on these DIY albums or he buries it as a bonus track, on a CD single or something.
I was secretly hoping last year when there was rumblings of a new McCartney album before McCartney 3 was announced that he was going to do another Fireman album.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm
Well,
not disappointed with McCartney 3, but I wish he had done another Fireman album.
I have seen quotes from Youth in recent years where he says that there are other plans that they've talked about. So who knows if that's ever going to happen? Could be wishful thinking on his part. We don't really know. But I don't think Paul plans he's not saying, here's how my next 5 years are going to unfold. He doesn't know. He goes in the moment and what he feels like doing at the time. So, but yeah. So you like bogey music, do you?
I love bogey
All
music.
right. I thought I was the only one on the planet that loves bogey
Well,
music.
there's another one now.
I'm not alone.
You're not alone.
Yeah. And temporary secretary, I guess you love?
Oh, temporary secretary. I had one of the most religious experiences at a concert when I saw him back in 2016. And usually I'm one of those awful people who's on their phone checking the set list from the previous night so
Hmm.
I know what to expect. And that night I decided not to. And then, suddenly I hear the opening synth notes to temporary secretary. And I had thought, I had died or something and I was in
Uh-huh.
heaven.
Yeah. I was really surprised when I learned he was doing that. I wish he would do more stuff like that, more of the lesser known tracks of his solo career. He throws you a bone like that, but I wish there was a lot more of it.
Would you have thought like 40 years ago that temporary secretary would become one of his most popular songs with the new generation?
Well, it's got that dance vibe to it, and it was released as a dance track, so it must have been played a bit in the dance clubs in the UK, but I don't know about the rest of the world. I'm not quite sure how they respond to that particular song. But in general, you would prefer it if Paul would do more stuff like McCartney 2 than a pop album with a lot of pop and rock gems?
I'll say I'll take a McCartney 2 over a London Town any day.
How about over New? Well,
Ooh,
this is your favorite McCartney album, so
this
therefore I
is
guess you
I
would
think I would have to take it over New.
over Tug of War,
Yeah, over Tug of War.
really? Over
But
Band on the Run?
over Band on the Run.
Wow, very
I
interesting.
really like it when Paul gets weird.
Yeah, I wish he'd do it more often. I wish he'd do it in concert and get weird.
Oh, could you imagine what would happen if he like started playing like front parlor?
Hmm. Well, I hope that there would be a significant number of people in the audience that would know that it's front parlor, because a lot of people that go to see him are more casual mainstream fans that don't follow everything that he does. But yeah, when you hear a lot of the weird stuff, like the Twin Freaks kind of stuff, he leaves that for his DJ to play before the concert. I wish he'd be doing it himself, a lot of that stuff. Very interesting, though. How
Never
about,
say never.
yeah, um, how about something like Nobody Knows? Do you like a track like that?
Yes,
And why?
I just do.
See, there are certain songs that, I can sense an effort that Paul puts behind the music, and then Nobody Knows sounds like something that he just made up on the spot in the studio. And some people feel that, hey, if that's what he can do on the spur of the moment, all the more power to him. And some people like that. They like that spontaneity, which is what the Fireman was, really, Electric Arguments, creating
That's what I
songs.
like in it, at least.
Yeah. I mean, all the songs on Electric Arguments, each one was recorded in a day from scratch. So just knowing that approach with every song makes you go into each song and think that, and then appreciate even more that he came up with this. So, but interesting. I never would have expected McCartney 2 to be your favorite, but hey, that's why we have you here. We need different opinions here on this show.
Well, I like to stir the pot.
Okay, well, you're definitely doing that. Let's move on to your favorite McCartney B-sides and bonus tracks. And Lord knows there's a ton of them that he's released through the years. So,
Oh God, yes.
okay.
So
So,
many.
what would be in your top three?
Um, I don't know if this is because I'm Canadian and there's the bilingual aspect, but Où est le soleil? I know in some parts of the world it was released as a 12-inch single,
Uh-huh.
but and bonus track on Flowers. I like the song. It's another McCartney dance song.
Hey, I love it too. What you can do with just a few words.
Yeah.
And that's got a great groove to it. It gets a little bit confusing, and I should say this to our viewers, what's a B-side, what's a bonus track? To me, B-sides were always what was on the B-side on the vinyl single and on the cassette single, and then you'd have CD singles where that B-side on the vinyl and the cassette would also be on the CD single, but you'd have other tracks as well. So sometimes you don't really know if you should call it a bonus track or not. And Où est le soleil was a bonus track on the CD for Flowers in the Dirt, but it also came out as a 12-inch as well, 12-inch single.
It can also get confusing because one country's B-side is not another country's B-side.
That's
Could be
true.
an A-side, or it could just have a different song on it altogether.
And we
Uh,
need more confusion.
We need more confusion. As I like to say, good music should both confuse and scare you.
I like that. You came up with that yourself, huh? I guess so. All right, so you got Où est le soleil in there. What are the other two?
Okay, the other two. It's this could again, this is also getting into murky territory because a bit of an edit was slapped onto "Come On People," but the full version of "Cosmically Conscious" was only on a B side, so I'm going with "Cosmically Conscious."
Okay. All right. And why is that one of your favorites?
It's it it's the first of Paul's songs that I felt really kind of went back to the whole spirit of the '60s, and I really dig it. It's one of Paul's. Uh,
Well, he wrote it
it's
at the time when he met the Maharishi.
See, the thing is with me is I'm not a musicologist, and I'm also notoriously bad at explaining myself for
Okay.
things. So I'm really trying here.
So, yeah, I mean, sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes you can't pinpoint why you like a song and why you don't like a song.
Mhm.
I used to say, very often on the radio when I was a kid, "You Won't See Me" was my favorite Beatles song. And I couldn't really explain why. There's something about that particular song, maybe the way Paul sang it, the harmonies, you know, certain songs touch you and for reasons that maybe you can't fully explain. But Cosmically Conscious, yeah, certainly has that psychedelic feel to it. And, it was a line that the Maharishi said in camp, come and be cosmically conscious with me. And it's such a joy, you know. And he took those few words and he expanded on it and made a song out of it. Although, I personally don't look at it as a complete song because, you know, the Beatles broke all the rules, that, because usually you think of a song and you got verses and choruses and
Now
maybe
the
a middle eight.
Beatles, who are they again?
But, songs didn't have to have all those elements in them. There are
Yeah.
certain songs that have been created that have nothing but verses and no chorus. So that's not something the Beatles started, but, you know, I
Then you
do.
have something like "Ue Le Soleil," and you're not even sure if it has a chorus or a verse
Mm,
or anything. It's just
true.
the same few words.
Excellent point. And look at what he built around that.
He built something beautiful.
All right. What's your third song?
My third song, again, kind of dipping back into the well of McCartney too, is "Check My Machine."
Okay. That's another one, kind of in
The
the same category.
now this one I feel like I'm able to say more about because I've had to think long and hard about why it hit me so hard the first time I heard it.
Hmm.
And I was well into the Beatles. I had seen McCartney live a couple times before I had heard this. And then, all of a sudden one day saw, oh yeah, I've heard about this "Check My Machine" song. Let me put it on. And it just put me in a trance that I'm not sure I've ever come out of.
Hmm. Okay.
This
Interesting.
this borderline kind of dub, kind of not quite reggae. I don't know what it is. And that's what
Yeah,
I like about it. I don't know what it is.
he has
I
that one melody that he sings, and then what he does with that melody that goes dun 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 dun, dun at the same time. So it, like I said, he's a master at building things around one thing. Sometimes, I mean, I sometimes look at that would be something as another song that's in that same kind of category. There's really not much to it, but it's what he puts into it, all the different sounds he puts into it, how hot the bass is, how sloppy the drums are, whatever. It all adds something to the song. And Check My Machine is another song in that category. You like the high falsetto that he uses throughout?
I love it.
Well, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, so you like the weird.
I like the weird, and I think that's kind of just hit something on the head there. That maybe why I like McCartney 2 so much. It's because I feel like on that record he was putting sounds ahead of maybe songs.
Hmm. Some people might like that approach. Others might care more about the song first. So interesting.
I mean, but he's got good songs elsewhere. It's this album is just like a pure soundscape to me.
Okay. I like
And
that.
Check My Machine falls under that category.
Mm-hmm. All right. You could say that about a lot that's on McCartney too.
Yeah.
All right. Top three solo lyrics of Paul McCartney.
Now,
Don't say check
this
my machine.
okay. No, okay. Well, I'll take off Ue Le Soleil while I'm at it.
Okay.
Uh, this is a family friendly show, so I can't delve into too much of what the lyrics are. But if you're listening to this, you probably know big boys bickering.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I also have a bad memory, so I had to jot some of my favorite lyrics down. Uh, while they argue through the night, shaking their sticks of dynamite, babies are dying through the day, want to blow us all away.
Uh-huh.
I think, to me, after a decade of, to me, what felt like it was a decade of like we all stand together. This is a nice break from that.
A
Or
decade of We All Stand Together.
I mean, not really, but I'm not a huge fan of most of Paul's 80s stuff.
Uh-huh.
And to me, this feels like a bit of I know, I'm sorry. This
And
is probably
that's
not,
practically my favorite decade of his, but go ahead.
well, I know you had the show with Sam about Paul in the 80s.
Uh-huh.
So maybe this is probably not the forum
Okay.
to share that
No,
opinion.
no, no. We want different opinions.
But I feel like this is I don't know if he intended it this way, but it feels like a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to that. Or
Oh,
to the
that big boys bickering.
family friendly reputation of the 80s.
Okay. And yet he doesn't put it on the album. It's got to be, cast aside as a bonus track on a CD single.
Well, but with the amount of times he says the F word, it's probably I don't think EMI would let him.
I would love to play that song on my radio show on every little thing, but I'd have to do a lot of bleeping out there. And yeah, though I love that song. Don't get me wrong. And I think that it's rare when he gets political. I have no problem when any artist gets political. So, between this, Give Ireland Back to the Irish, those songs, I applaud Paul when he takes a stance like that. But some people might say he overdid it with the F word as if, he's trying to look cool here. But I like it when he just does whatever the hell he wants and doesn't care.
That's what I love, and I think that's why I picked those albums. I
Hmm.
love it when Paul does what Paul wants to do.
Right. Okay. Another song, because you got two more to go.
I have two more to go. Uh, Again, kind of dipping into the 80s, kind of, going back on what I just said. A lyric that's always kind of stood out to me is, My Brave Face, I've been hitting the town and it didn't hit back.
Hmm.
I don't know why that lyric has stuck with me so much.
Well, there's great lyrics throughout that entire song.
Mhm,
And you have to question how much of that is Paul and how much of that is Elvis.
mhm. Well, I feel like this is one of those Paul things.
That sounds like a Paul line to you.
It sounds like a Paul line to me. And again, I have nothing to back this up.
Hmm.
90% of what I've just said is, I've got a gut feeling, and this is my gut feeling.
Okay. No, it's really the lyrics of that song are really strong. My Brave Face. There's a lot of people who can sympathize and have been in that kind of a situation. Um, I know that if I was ever to do a number nine dream show myself and list my favorite McCartney lyrics, there are certain ones there that he wrote with Elvis Costello or Eric Stewart, and I wouldn't know which is written by Paul, which is written by the others. So I kind of stay away from them. But My Brave Face is definitely, I would rate it among the best lyrically in Paul's solo career. All right. I like the untouched TV dinners I laid for
Oh,
two. And you know, that's a great line too.
I almost went with that as one of the lyrics, I really liked.
Mm,
But I didn't want to dip or, double dip too much.
okay. You got one more to go.
Well, kind of, again, talking about double dipping, I'm dipping the whole song, Queenie Eye.
Okay. Tell me some of the lyrics in there that you especially admire from Paul.
I don't know if I think I made like the lyrics because it's kind of nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
The whole school ground rhyme thing, like Queenie guy, who's got the ball? I haven't got it. It is in my pocket.
Hmm. So you like, nonsense lyrics like that.
Well, for the last year, I've listened to nothing but really weird '60s psychedelic music.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not even talking about normal '60s psychedelic. I'm talking about like really weird. So it makes sense why I'd like this stuff so much.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably the root of the problem.
Why is that a problem? You should be allowed to like whatever you want to like.
Yeah, but on the other hand, it would probably make more sense if I liked lyrics that make sense.
Do you enjoy beyond these kind of lyrics, like within the Beatles, you've got, you know, John could write extremely personal songs. So could Paul.
Mhm.
Don't get me wrong. But when he writes something that has a much deeper meaning and message, do you appreciate those? Or would you rather go for something that may not be all that serious at all? I mean, Paul writes a lot of songs like, say, Listen to What the Man Said. What does it really mean? It's just a great set of lyrics that you can sing along to, and it fits the melody, and it's a great tune. It's a great, catchy tune. Doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it does have value to itself. Do you like those songs more, or do you like songs that really are much more deeper lyrically?
Well, it's not about liking them more. I like them in a different way
Hmm.
because life is depressing. It's nice when you can put on a fun song that has nonsense words and you can just sit there and enjoy it,
Uh-huh.
as opposed to deep contemplative thought while listening to like Julia.
Yeah. But I wouldn't say, life is always depressing.
Not always.
Okay. But within the Beatles, that's the great thing. You've got this variety, not only in musical genres, but different styles of writing lyrics. And, there's plenty of times when I'm more in the mood to hear George than the others. You know, they all fulfill a certain need in us. And, with Paul, there are plenty of times he's written some powerful, deep songs. He doesn't get enough credit for them, but I mean, My Brave Face is a great example of that. You know, he put a lot of effort with Elvis Costello into a song like that. So, and many times now I've mentioned on Talk More Talk how much I love the end of the end. I mean, how serious a song that is and very poetic. And at the same time, you can write bip bop, so they all have a place.
Well, the thing is when it comes to lyrics, it's when I listen to music, I usually for listen for the sonics more than anything. You
Hmm.
know, a song could have no words and I'd like it. The lyrics to me, as sacrilege as it may be to say, kind of are secondary to me when it or to you know sonically, the instrumentation, the production.
Okay. Well, that's where you and I differ, but
Yeah.
that's fine. You
Well,
know,
I know, and I'm not in the majority on this one. I'm kind of a freak when it comes to that.
you're not a freak. Everybody is entitled to their own opinions and their own tastes. I think production is extremely important, but I don't think it's as important as how strong the song is first. You could have the greatest production in the world and have a nothing song, and it's still a nothing song.
I'm I mean, I still think melody is, again, sacrilege to say. I think it's more important to me enjoying the song than the lyrics.
Well, we agree on that because
Yeah.
melody to me is more important than lyrics, but lyrics can make great lyrics can make a good song even better.
No,
Y-
I agree with you there. But
y-
it's if I like a song, then
Yeah.
I'll kind of go back and after listening to it, I'll kind of go back and clue in on what the words are,
Hmm.
as opposed to just absorbing it as this, as these waves of sound hitting me.
Yeah. Well, there's so many songs that Paul has done through the years where lyrically they're just good lyrics that fit the melody and they work. And they can still be great songs without being great lyrics. But if you have truly great lyrics to go with a great melody, that makes it even better. That's, the way I look at it. And yeah, I care about production, but not nearly as much as the song to me is always the root of it all. But we do agree on melody coming first before the lyrics. The melody is what sticks in my head more than anything else, more than words do.
But on the other hand, you could have a song with fantastic lyricism, and it could be completely ruined by the production. There's been some stuff that McCartney's done that kind of feels like that to me.
Such as?
Uh,
I mean,
uh,
he rarely ever writes a bad melody to me.
no,
Everything sticks in my mind after I listen to it a few times. That's one of the many gifts he has. You know, I hate to always overuse the word earworm, but he's like the king of that. You listen to his songs a few times and it sticks in your mind. And that is a gift to itself, but every song of his that has truly great lyrics, I think is a great song. So can you think of any?
I'm still trying. I realized after I made that statement, it's like, oh, I'm gonna have to back it up with something.
When you talk to me, you have to. Otherwise, I'm going to just have to invite you back. That does look like in front of you. We were talking about this before we did the recording. That what do you call it? To protect the microphone.
Yeah,
You know,
windscreen or
it, it
whatever.
looks like the back of John's head from A Hard Day's Night.
It kind of does. When they're in the theater doing, She Loves You.
Uh-huh. Or when you see the Hard Day's Night cover, or the end of the movie, when you see the back of their heads. So yeah, reminds me of that. Must be intentional on your part.
Everything's intentional,
Okay.
except for when it's not.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing your opinions on Paul's solo music here. And for anyone interested, I will provide the link in my description box for your podcast called Fans on the Run. Do make sure you check it out. And for all of my viewers, thanks so much for watching. Again, please subscribe if you can to my channel and to
Trying to point to
my
where the
other,
button would be. Hit that subscribe button.
yeah, right there. Things we said today, the podcast for that, and Talk More Talk, a solo Beatles videocast, where no doubt at some point we will have Ethan on, I'm sure. You want to invite a lot of the podcasters onto that show, and that will probably happen sometime in the near future. So I'm giving you all fair warning for that.
Give time to prepare, stock up, prepare for the worst.
And turn the sound down and say rude things.
Yeah. Who's this Ethan when he's at home?
That's right. All right. Thanks so much to all of you for watching. And thank you, Ethan, for being here. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me.